So hey guys, Mark Weisberg here. I just wanted to show you how I do my post-production for luxury real estate photography. What I do is I have my SD card, I download it onto my desktop, and this is a generic folder that I've made. It's a master folder, and I just put the date and the shoot location or the client as the title. Then I have two raw folders here. One could be from camera 1, the second can be from camera 2. I'm a big proponent of using Infuse, E-N-F-U-S-E. The desktop GUI version is amazing, and I use that for my bracketed images instead of doing HDR. And I have another folder for Pano, and then JPEG. So what I do is I import all my images, my raw images, I'm a raw shooter, into the raw file. The thing I'll do is I use Photo Mechanic, and I use that for my culling. So essentially what I'll do is I'll drag in my raw files, and within about 60 seconds it will automatically make me a complete catalog that I can then cull the images. So whatever I want, I can just go and code them. I use red for keepers, and then I can just throw out everything else. Fairly simple and straightforward. From here, what I do is I just take whatever raw files that I want to process within Lightroom 6, and I'd simply drag them into Lightroom 6. In Lightroom, I already have a preset that I start all my images with, and I call it a base layer, and I'll give you a real brief description of what's involved in that base layer preset. So essentially, these are all the files that have been imported into Lightroom 6. I built my one-to-one previews, and what we're actually looking at right here are all the process images. All these images have already been processed. But what I've done also is I've taken a couple of the images and set them aside, rated them 5 stars, so I can go ahead and show you some before and afters and how we get to that. And if we just take a look at a basic image here in the develop panel, let's actually look at one of the ones that I worked on. We can see some of the adjustments that are done. I'm bumping up my contrast a little bit. I'm pulling down highlights. I've increased, open up shadows. Whites are staying where they have been. Blacks are being increased so that I can see a little bit of black there. I'm typically leaving my highlights, darks, and shadows alone in the base layer. So basically I've just made a preset. And I'm not doing anything over here in the color saturation. A lot of times when I have green, I'm going to bump that green up to about, say, 20%. But right now, we're just going to leave that green as is, because there is no green in the image. The other thing I did skip over, I wanted to get back to, is typically increasing clarity up into the 20s somewhere. Vibrance is increased about to +10, and saturation +6. So this essentially over here is my preset, which is the base layer. And that's applied to all the images on import. The other thing that's really important to me is using the lens profiles. So I'm using primarily for a majority of my shoot is the Sony 16-35 f4Z OSS and the Sony 24-70 Z OSS. There are highlights, pardon me, Adobe lens profiles included. So let's take a look and see what the image looks like before it's touched at all and before any profile is added. So you can see that there's a little bend in here, a little bit of distortion. Basically what I'll do is I will click on a lens profile, and you'll see it automatically cleans up that distortion. I'm going to go backwards and forwards. Lens profile is not to every image. Instead, it's applied to each image on a case-by-case basis. What I find very helpful is the manual lens corrections. And a lot of times what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the vertical control. So you can see over to the left of the screen, previously, this is, the verticals are not correct. So I am correcting them just a little bit. And I find this invaluable. This corrects just about everything before I have to go into Photoshop, if I even need to go into Photoshop. So I usually just do these visually. So what I'm going to do here is I actually, the auto lens, pardon me, the base layer was not applied to this. So I am going to go ahead and apply that base layer. The verticals are still intact from the adjustment, so is the lens profile. And what we're going to do, we're going to bring down these highlights just slightly. And right here, this is pretty perfect for me. I can see actually where my umbrella was coming in here a little bit. I'm just going to erase that. And let's close out of the spot module. And as far as I'm concerned, this image is now ready to go. So I'm a big believer in getting as much as you can correct in camera. So I don't have to go into Photoshop if I don't need to. There are times where my lens profile will not be able to straighten out all the verticals perfectly. At that point, I'll bring it into Photoshop. But my clarity, my color, everything is being taken care of in Lightroom at least 95, 98% of the way. And if I need to make any final adjustments, that will be done in Adobe Photoshop. So let's take a quick look at a couple more images. So we have this kitchen here. This is a finished image. And it was a little bit difficult. Whenever you have brown cabinets or black cabinets, they eat up a lot of light. So I do a couple of things. I usually have a foam core board down at the bottom of the tripod with a speed light on the floor bouncing back into the cabinet area just slightly. Let's take a look at the original image. Nothing done to it at all. You can see that verticals need to be straightened out, and it's kind of dark and a little bit muddy. So let's take this image from scratch and take a look how we can just clean it up pretty well. Remember what I said is that almost everything is done in camera, so I know I need to straighten up the image a little bit. And there's actually an auto lens profile, and let's try that. That looks really, really nice. I'm going to go in for a second into the manual lens correction, and I'm gonna straighten out these verticals ever so slightly. I really like the gradients that we can use in Adobe Photoshop. These have been around for a while. Let's just clean up that exposure a little bit, add a little bit of contrast. I'm going to add a touch of yellow. I'm going to open these shadows just a little bit more. And this looks really good to me right now. And then let's just pull a gradient over here a tiny bit and play down this exposure just slightly. Bring some of the highlights down a little bit. There's a little bit of shadow coming across, but I can live with that. At this point, this image looks really good to me, and I'm just going to compare it to the image. Yeah, that's really, really close. There's a little bit of lens profiling that I did on the other side, and I think this could use a little bit more black point, which I'm not showing in here, so I also need to apply my base layer to this real quick. It's going to bring out some of the color, and let's just give this a little bit more darkness, a little bit more black, and this looks really nice. It looks really close. It actually looks better than the my original image that I had done. So let's just take a look at one more image. This is the final image. It's really didn't need to do anything to it in Photoshop at all. I'm still in Lightroom 6, and this was the original how it was shot. You can see the windows are kind of blown out here. I sort of did this on purpose because if you're looking across the street, there's a lot of construction going on. But I wanted to bring the image back just a little bit, and it needed a little bit of cropping and a little bit of straightening out. You can see a little bit of haze in here from the light coming in from the window. So the first thing I'll do is I'll apply the lens profile to it. That straightened it out a lot, but I like the auto lens profile that Lightroom 6 has in here. And basically you just go into the basic. I'm going to, it's just auto, click right here on auto, enable profile corrections, auto. And that's going to straighten out the image a little bit. So let me just do Command Z, we'll go back. If I click on auto profile here, it's the same thing. I've just made a preset for it. I know that what I'm going to need to do here is I'm going to need to pull a gradient across, and let's just do this real fast. I keep on forgetting to apply the base layer to that. We've gone ahead and done that. I'm going to bring my exposure down a little bit. I'm going to bring highlights down a little bit. You'll automatically see the exterior the exterior ambient light be brought in just a little bit. And I think that's pretty good right there. I can pull over one more gradient right here. And I'm just going to pull this in for the floor, which is kind of blown out right there. We're going to bring that back as much as we can. And that looks really nice. And we're just going to crop into this a little bit. I can see a little bit of the brick coming across, and that looks really nice to me right there. Let's go take a look at the original finished image that I have in Lightroom, and that's really good. Once again, I think I'm a little wide here on the crop, so we'll just bring that side in a tiny bit. And I think I might have, just to bring in the eye a little bit, I'm going to pull a gradient over here. We'll just play that down slightly, and to me that looks like a nicely finished image. We'll just flip back and forth for a second. That's pretty close to what I did. I actually cropped in even a little bit more. I cropped some of that window, but I could go either way. The vertical here is off just a tiny bit, so I'm going to fix that with my vertical here, and that does that. Let's go ahead and see. So I cropped in on this one. So you can see that there's a dramatic difference. We'll go into the history for a second. And this is where we started out. And here's where we started out, and here's where we ended up. And essentially what I'm going to do for all these images is I'm going to go back into grid view. All of these would just be exported. I've made presets here also, and my clients are typically getting 10 by 10 images. It's going to be 10 on the longest side at 300 dpi. That's all output into a folder on my desktop, and then I put it in a Dropbox and deliver it to my client. If anything needs to be done in Adobe Photoshop, I'll go ahead and do that, but I really try to get as much as possible done correct in camera. I'm using speed lights, I'm using available lighting in congruence with my speed lights, and then I'm tweaking them in Adobe Lightroom 6.1, I believe it is right now, as much as possible. Yeah, 6.1.1, and then I'm going ahead and outputting it for my client. I hope you enjoyed this little bit, and I look forward to giving you more information as time goes by.